have two questions for you from me. There were talks of generational curses and how, one guy, his dad was in prison when he was 1 year old. And then he went to prison when his daughter was one. Daughter's coming off of parole. So my question to you is, as far as your family background, does your family have a history of incarceration or family just being in trouble with the law or stuff like that?
They don't. I was a black sheep. Nope, my dad, he probably never even broke the law. Maybe the worst he's ever gotten is a speeding ticket, if that. I was the first one. Hopefully the last.
Yeah, I was going to ask too, with you being the first one, were you fearful of beginning a curse within your family, or fearful that you would start, something like that would start with you?
Yeah, I mean, it crossed my mind, just, what's going to happen. Obviously I don't want my children to end up taking the same path as me, thinking that it was cool. Luckily I didn't have to do my whole sentence just because I was able to effectively fight it. But if I would have done the whole sentence, I would have been 6 more years in, which means my children would have been 6 years older. I came home, my oldest son was 12. So, yeah, I often think about how that might have turned out if I was in prison until he was 18. Because those are the most formative years, especially with a male and a female, boys and girls, of course. But just, a lot of times black boys, a lot of times that's when they get caught up and they start having a lot of resentment if the father's not around, or maybe if they're struggling financially. So yeah, those are absolutely some things that crossed my mind. But I was blessed to be able to come home, right before my son was about to turn a teenager.
Were there already any behaviors that were showing that you feel like were a result of you not being there, or do you think you caught it pretty well?
I'm blessed that I came home. Yeah, there was probably behaviors. Yeah, I think so. But I think you start to understand that more as time goes on. Because the behaviors, he wasn't in the street getting into trouble or catching charges. There was no criminal element. But obviously children are going to be impacted when one of the parents is in prison. Even if you don't see that immediately, you start to understand it and see it. And once I came home, yeah, clearly I was able to see some things that would have 100% been different had I not been gone and had I been there.
How did you feel? Most of our interviews are with incarcerated people or people who have freed themselves from addiction or homelessness. This is our first episode where we were adjacent to, right? How did you feel? I know you mentioned it in the episode that this is our first time interviewing somebody that's in the community, but not necessarily the lead character, so to speak. So I thought it was pretty interesting to see those affected's lifestyle. And I remember when we first met, that was kind of what we talked about, is that In and Out was going to highlight how it affects other people. And I thought that was pretty interesting. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I really appreciated it. It brings me back. It made me reflect more on my mom, my parents, and just for me, I carried a tremendous amount of guilt, for what I did to my parents and also my children. So it made me think about that more, and hearing their stories, and seeing the passion and the emotion and the pain, the grief and the struggle. Yeah, it was devastating. I say I'm appreciative of it from the standpoint that, I know I feel that their stories and the story of their son Blake is going to reach a lot of people. It's going to impact a lot of people, and it's going to bring about a lot of needed understanding, when people start hearing of all of the people attached to, connected to, touched by, people that rely on of people that are incarcerated. You could see, you could hear the pain, you could see the grief on them. Tasha, she's living with it as if he was just locked up yesterday. And that's how it is for mothers and for spouses. and and for fathers, and for siblings, and for children. When a loved one is incarcerated, people go through the same exact stages of grief that people experience when there's a loss of life. So for me, I can't wait to do more of it, to speak to more people, to give more people a platform, to allow people to share their stories, because those stories, it's those stories that are going to impact others that can change the world. There's strength in numbers. And when you put those numbers into perspective and you hear from the people that are not incarcerated, the people that did not commit a crime, and you hear how they're being affected, I think it's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of a great segue into my last two-parter question for you. It's that whole conversation on grief again, right? What stuck out to me during this interview was when they mentioned the lawyer saying I have my own grief when it comes to this case. And I just thought that was mind-blowing to hear a lawyer say something like that. Which, lawyers grieve too at the loss of cases, but I guess they kind of have to move along pretty quickly, and they can't stay in the same place that families stay in when their loved one is affected by incarceration, right? So my question, first part for you is, was there a time when you were hearing about all of the grief from all angles from your family, like when people were sharing how it was affecting them? Did you have times like that where it was just everyone was telling you, oh, I can't believe da-da-da-da? Yes, when I came home. Because when I was in there, everybody's trying to, I guess, be strong for me. And I'm trying to be strong for them. But years later, when you come home, that's when you really start just getting a better understanding of, you have it when you're in there, but you start hearing the stories. It's like a drip, 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 because, people don't want to flood you with their grief when you first come home because they're happy that you're home. But as time goes on, there's different moments, and you have different instances with different individuals, So this time it might be, my son, where we're just, for whatever reason, we just, end up having a conversation about something where, you get, they might share a story with you or something that you weren't even aware of, because you know that they're hurting, but you don't know you truly don't understand how much they're hurting until you get, you hear of different stories that just kind of they shake you to your core. And, so that goes on with everyone. I've shared stories with my mom, with each one of my children individually and collectively. Different people, you start hearing about how it really hurt them. And I thought you were actually going to tell me that you heard most of the brunt of things while you were incarcerated. So it's interesting, people don't open up until you come home. So in my mind, what I'm thinking is it kind of sucks that people feel like we can't be honest with each other as things are happening, because things suck as it's happening. But on both sides, it's oh, I have to be strong while I'm in here. I have to present strong to my family, and your family is presenting to you oh, I have to be strong. What do you feel about that dynamic? Why do you think that has to be so? Or do you think we should strive to just be more honest as things are going on?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. When I say I don't know, as to what do I think people should do as it's going on, I would probably lean towards the honesty as it's going on, because I think that sometimes, human beings are incredible. As long as you're just honest and upfront. But also when you're in prison, your family members, they're already scared to death. They don't know what you're going to go through. They don't know what it's going to be like. Most people don't have a concept of what their loved one is going through. So they want to try and be strong. And then they're always keeping that hope that, something is going to happen. Maybe there's going to be an appeal, or maybe the laws are going to change. So, you get into arguments. I got into arguments with my wife over the phone over different things, but for the most part, she's trying to be strong for me and I'm trying to be strong for her. And then the kids, they were kids. My oldest son was 6 years old. So they were probably getting lied to, or, you know, I don't really want to call it lied to. Is, you know, it's just like when we spoke to, you know, Christopher and Tasha. People just don't know. You don't know what to tell a 6-year-old child. You don't know what they can comprehend and what they can handle. Really, they can handle anything. It's just like sometimes when people die, some people don't believe in bringing the children to the funeral. I do, because I believe in bringing them. Yeah, death is a part of life, you know. So you got to be honest with them. But at the same time, and at least in my family, they weren't, and I don't blame them for that. Maybe I wouldn't have been either. I'm just saying nobody knows what to do. So you're telling the child, dad is he's away for a while. Where? Well, the child really doesn't even understand what prison is anyway. You know, so you never really tell them exactly when they're coming home. You don't know.
I guess it just makes me wonder, and we can end on this note too, but when it comes to the healing process, do you think that healing would have maybe quickened a little faster if we stay honest with each other as things are going along versus if we try to hide things and we're not being vulnerable? Because we think we're being strong, but we're really just kicking the can down the road, right?
Well, let me answer it this way. And I don't want to keep saying I don't know. But I don't know. But I will tell you. But what I will tell you is that I would lean towards, it sounds like, what's your position? Because I try and live my life in a way I say, my life is an open book. Anything you ask me, I'm going to tell you, just be prepared for the answer. Because it might be an answer that you don't want or that you can't handle. So I can't speak for other people, but I can speak for myself. I believe in telling the truth. Sometimes my mother, I've grown up in a house where the older people try and hide things from the younger people. You know, when someone does something, if someone is, addicted to drugs or did something that, that's nothing to be proud of, people hide it from them. But I always say, listen, if it happened, say it. Yeah, if it happened, it happened. It is what it is. And I don't believe in protecting people by lying to them. So maybe I might not come out and announce it, but if someone asks me a direct question, I'm gonna tell them the answer. And then if it's something that's someone else's business, that maybe that's the only reason why I'm not gonna tell them, because someone else specifically, maybe I feel that it's not my place to share someone else's business. My practice is to say, listen, this is something I can't talk about, but I'm not going to lie to them. Because when you lie to someone, you set a dangerous precedent. I just don't believe in lying to children, because when children find out that you're lying to them or that you've lied to them, there's always going to be a little bit of doubt in their mind. I know. I was a child before. And when I found out that my parents told me things that weren't true, and this is years later, I always looked at it like, yo, how do I know 100% that you're telling me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So it's maybe it's not just a straight black and white answer. I understand that when people do this, they do it because they believe they're doing the right thing, or they believe that they're protecting someone. But I don't agree with it.
Well, we always want to keep it real here on In and Out Podcast.
There you go. That's right. There's only one way to do it. You got to keep it real. 100%.
Yeah, so anything from you, GP? Go ahead and close us out on that note.
Once again, we appreciate y'all for tuning in. Every single time you tune in with us, we appreciate you. We know you could be doing a lot of other things, but you decide. You make a conscious decision to tune in with In and Out Podcast with Eric Gerald at INNOUTWW. So continue to tune in, continue to tap in. Wherever you find your podcast, you will find us. We appreciate you for tuning in, and now we're out. Peace.